I'm going to break this down. I'm going to tell you something that's really, really, really important to understand in terms of card evaluation, okay? So this is like rule number 1 of card evaluation, which is being able to evaluate trades. I'm going to list 3 cards here, okay? I'm going to list 3 champions that are very counterable and very removable, right? So we're talking about Heimerdinger. Heimerdinger is a card that has 3 health. It can die to Black Spear, it can die to the Box, it can die to Grasp of Undying, and it can die to common challenger effects like Fiora, Stalking Wolf, and possibly even Rhymefanged Wolf is maybe even an answer, right? 3 damage effects are gonna be fairly common in the game, and there's almost no 4. So Heimerdinger is something that can get removed. Yasuo is another card that can get removed. When Yasuo is also at 3 health, so it also represents basically the same thing. It's less free to remove for a challenger. Something like Fiora or Stalking Wolf can't kill it without trading. And lastly, we're going to look at Zed. Zed is a card that can get removed. It's actually the most removable out of all 3 of these cards, okay? It has 2 health, so it not only dies to the aforementioned cards, but it dies to Mystic Shot. Actually, there's very little things in this game that deal 2 damage, but Mystic Shot's a 3 of in like PNZ, basically. It'll die to Mystic Shot. God, what else? There's gotta be something else that Avalanche. Oh yeah, Avalanche. Right. I knew I was forgetting something. Yeah. Okay, Avalanche. There we're good. We're good. Okay. So here's my question to you guys. This is a really, really, really important answer to question to answer. So Zed is the most removable. Heimerdinger is probably the second most removable because again, when you use Challenger into Heimerdinger, he doesn't kill you back, so you keep your unit. And Yasuo is probably the least removable out of all of these. So my question to you is, in terms of counterability, how would you rank these 3 cards? Which is the most counterable and which is the least counterable? And this is a fairly basic question. A lot of you guys will get this right. This is really, 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 really important to understand from the perspective of deck building. The answer is it's completely backwards. Even though Zed is the most removable and Yasuo is the least removable, Yasuo is the most counterable and Zed is the least counterable, okay? Let's break that down. The most important aspect of evaluating these cards that a lot of people aren't thinking about is the idea of commitment, pre-commitment from a deck building perspective, right? And this is kind of where these 3 cards break down. Where you have Yasuo is a 4/3, so he's got a decent stat line, but it's not about the stats. To be able to run Yasuo effectively, you need to build a deck around him. This incurs a very high deck building cost to the point where you are effectively committed to find Yasuo. I've even heard people talking about an idea of this deck that cuts Nox and runs Entry just because you want more Yasuo, right? The point is that this deck is fundamentally reliant on Yasuo. So even though he is less removable, it's like a little bit harder to remove him, or you might have to give up a Fiora or a Stalking Wolf to remove him, right? Even though he's less removable, when he gets removed, he's only a little bit less removable, and when he gets removed is a huge downswing for the Yasuo player. It's like, I'm not going to say a loss, but it's a very, 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 very big hit to your win rate as a deck in that moment, right? Let's look at Heimerdinger. Heimerdinger is the middle ground in both of these perspectives. Like I said, it's the middle in terms of counterable, and it's the middle in terms of removable. Heimerdinger is, like Yasuo, he's removable, and he's committal. He costs 5 mana, and Zed costs 3. So even though Heimerdinger costs 5, he still costs you as a player less than Yasuo. Why is that? Because you can run Heimerdinger in decks that can gain value out of him without going out of their way to gain that value. Let's explain that. A decent example is maybe something like a Frostbite deck could find a way to sneak in a Heimer or 2, okay? Because that deck is already running a decent amount of spells. And maybe you're already running Ezreal for a win condition, right? So maybe you can go like, I don't know, 3 Ashe, Heimerdinger, 2 Ezreal, or something like that. I have no idea. You know, you could find room for like a Heimerdinger or 2. And the idea is, yes, he costs 5 mana. Yes, he dies to Fiora and Wolf without trading like Yasuo would trade. But the most important thing is when he dies, even though it feels bad, you aren't basically invalidating your entire deck built around that, right? Yasuo is the most committal out of these options, okay? And lastly, we've got Zed. Zed, like I said, is the most removable, and I see a lot of people fall into this trap. I see a lot of people, I've seen comments saying, oh, I think Zed is overrated, I can just kill him with my Mystic Shot. That's true, but think about what you're actually doing when you kill a Zed with your Mystic Shot. Yes, you're gaining 1 mana. Yes, you're trading a normal slot for a champion slot, which is not very high value, to be honest, but it is technically something, yes. In some situations. But in reality, yes, when you trade 1 mana, that's fine, and the Zed player shrugs, and he's fine with that. He's fine if his Zed dies in 40% of the cases, because in 60% of the cases, his Zed is going to pop off, and his deck isn't going to care about it. When the Yasuo player, even though maybe Yasuo dies, let's say 25% of the time, it doesn't even matter. This is an ass-pulled percentage, right? Yasuo dies 25% of the time, okay? And then on those situations, the Yasuo player basically folds, right? It feels very, very, very bad when the Yasuo dies. And I think it's a pretty good example. These 3 cards kind of ordered in this way. This is super important. When you're evaluating trades at any point, when you're evaluating deck building costs at any point, you need to think in these terms. Because this is the biggest reason why Yasuo is not a good card, and even Heimerdinger might be a better card than Yasuo. The deck building cost of Yasuo is much higher than even the deck building cost of Heimerdinger. I don't think Heimerdinger is a good card to answer the original question, but it's really, really important to understand this, because I'm not gonna. I don't want to leave it so simple as just answering the question. I believe firmly, teach a man how to fish instead of giving him a fish. I want you to understand why I think about Heimerdinger where I do. Because yes, Heimerdinger is not a great card. I don't love the card, but I would rate him pretty poorly. Don't get me wrong. I would rate Heimerdinger fairly poorly, but I still might put him a little bit ahead of Yasuo and some other committal engine tools for that reason, right? Super important to understand.